everybody, welcome back. I had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I am about to begin my newest video, 1972 in retrospect, and I have a lot to cover. First, I want to give a shout out to Lady Peeps for tuning in. Hello, Lady Peeps from UK. She has been a wonderful friend and given me great encouragement. I met her on my friend Lee's Cynthia Lee Court Zorker Cynthia Lee show. He is a scam baiter, one of the best scam baiters out there, and you can catch him on YouTube every Saturday on Pacific time at 10 a.m. all through to Eastern time where I am right now at 1 p.m. And we've been tuning into his show. We became great friends. And of course, shout out to Lee, Cynthia Lee, for his encouragement. And I have been following him. I have been a fan of his since he began in 2016. I was looking for a lot of scam baiters, happened upon his show, and he's very unique, very talented. He just knows, he's just very technologically knowledgeable. And please tune into his channel as well. So anyway, my thoughts on 1972. I was 4 years old, and there was a lot going on in that year. One thing in particular everyone knows is, of course, the Watergate scandal, which began in 1972. And of course, it started with plumbers who needed more jobs. They were complaining that they needed more jobs. So Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman gave them the go-ahead to do more. You know, they gave them some odd jobs to do. And they broke into the Watergate office, and there they planted a lot of wiretap bugs. And of course, it was encouraged by Nixon. Everybody knew that. And I believe it was to help his campaign out, because a lot of politicians tend to do this in very unorthodox ways. And of course, as the timeline went on, there was a lot of tapes that were between Nixon and his staff and other employees. And of course, he was encouraged by Congress to turn them over. And of course, the ones he turned over were all edited. And then in the moving forward, the entire tapes in their entirety had to be turned over. And then there was the bill for his resignation, and he was forced to resign as of on August of 1974. And he was the very first president to resign. But when Ford took office, Ford pardoned him. So that was the big thing of 1972 over to 1974. And if my facts are wrong, you can always check out on Wikipedia. Look under timeline of Watergate, and it breaks it down each and every step and each and every date as it went, as it followed through. And hi, Lee. I was giving you a shout out, telling everybody about your channel, and Lady Peeps. You two have been my best friends as of late, and you've been a great encouragement. I want to thank both of you. And moving right along, there's another tidbit of information that really nobody knew about. And this resulted in a 1993 movie called Alive. And it was a plane crash. It was a Uruguayan flight. It was a team of rugby players from Uruguay that were traveling they're going through the Andes Mountains. They were getting ready for a rugby competition. And this was on October 13th, 1972. The plane crashed into the mountains. First, a wing fell off, and then part of the side fell off the plane. And it was very scary that quite a few passengers, I think about 9 or 10 of them, were ejected from the plane. And as it crashed into the mountains, they were forced to, of course, survive any way they knew how. A lot of the survivors, quite a few of them, died from the elements, from exposure. And as a last, the last stand, the last thing that they can do to turn to was, of course, cannibalism. And that's when you're in the mountains and you're stranded anywhere, and that's all I guess you can do. So what happened is they took a lot of the flesh from the deceased, and what happened was a group of them took some of it with them, and they went on a 12-day trek. And after the 12 days, they were able to alert authorities of the crash, and they were able to send planes, helicopters, and of course, the remaining 14 passengers were ecstatic and they all cheered. And then sometime later, maybe about a year later, they visited the crash site again and they gave a lot of the corpses a proper burial. And there they put a cross, which was really, really a really good thing that they did. And out of their, like, the kindness out of their hearts, they felt that that was what they could do, because it wouldn't be very orthodox to just leave them there. And, you know, you had to do what you can for these people that went through that very difficult time. So that was a tidbit too. And that was, it was a 1993 movie. It got Rotten Tomatoes a bit because the acting was a little off, but it really documented the event perfectly. And other things to mention were some of the restaurants of the era that I remember when I was about 4 years old in 1972. One of them was Sambo's Restaurants. And it was similar to Denny's. You know, it was fun, had a nice menu, had good food. And the story behind that was it began in 1957. And actually, it was based upon this book called The Adventures of Black Sambo, or and I can't really remember the title, but it was a little controversial for the time. People thought really the character was African American, and it turned out it was South Indian. And the owner, you know, he put murals all over the restaurant and paintings and characters from the book. And in the beginning, it was a dark-skinned boy with a turban, tigers, and there was a unicorn, not a unicorn, but it was a pale unicycle riding character called Tree Friend. I don't know what they were thinking, but Tree Friend. Anyway, the characters really turned out to be more of a, like I said, a South Indian, but the character was turned into a light-skinned boy and tigers. And the main theme, mainly for Sambo's, was the tiger with holding the umbrella. And of course, it was the, you know, the South Indian character, and which was really cute. And all in all, there was a lot of chains. And in the late 70s, there was some controversy that the name Sambo was a nickname for the African American people. So they turned it into this, it was like Sambo's, something about Sam's Place or Sam's Friendly, I think it was Sam's Friendly Food, to avoid any controversy. And then in the 80s, there was a lot of chains that, I think it was in 1981, it was known as Season's Good Eating. And then they tried that, but then 6 months later, or 9 months later, they filed for bankruptcy in November of 1981. But there was one remaining in Santa Barbara. As far as I know, up until now, I'm not too sure, it might still be there in Santa Barbara, but that was the extent of Sambo's. And I remember Sambo's Restaurants. And another one, the other one, I remember the food was awesome. It was called Lum's Restaurants, and they were known for their hot dogs steamed in beer. And their onion rings were fantastic, I remember. And that was bought out. Actually, it was two brothers in 1957 that bought out Lum's hot dog stand for $10,000. And they started franchise. They started a lot of locations across the U.S. And they were invited to go into the stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange. And what happened was they actually bought Caesar's Palace. And they offered, you know, of course, they set up a lot of locations there. And the restaurant part, the food, they actually sold it to someone named John Brown, an entrepreneur named John Brown, in 1971. And he opened up, of course, a lot of franchises and did very well. And then somewhere down the line, there was a Swiss business that was run by some German named guy or some Austrian, or it was Swiss. Yeah, I know. I should have done a video and posted up, Lady Peeps. I tend to be a little bit shaky in these live videos because I always have to refer back to my notes. So, which I'm probably going to do. So if you guys are disappointed, I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm still trying to find my way. And anyway, regarding Lums, it was purchased, a Swiss holding company called Wienerwald Holdings. Yes, Wienerwald, or Wienerwald. And what they did is they purchased all 273 locations from John Brown. But of course, they got greedy and they overextended themselves, and they were forced to file for bankruptcy in 1982, along with the other two franchises with their 70 locations. And the original closed in 1983, but there was only one left in Nebraska, and they opened up another one. Another store location was opened up in 2010 in Massachusetts. That ended up closing, and then the Nebraska one was still left open, and that, of course, closed in 2017, which was sad. But the only remaining restaurant I remember in 1992 was in North Miami Beach. I remember a boyfriend of mine at the time, we used to always go down there to the beach and spend time, and it was very nice riding through there. And I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, Lum's Restaurant, there's one left. And as far as 1998, according to Wikipedia, that was the last one remaining. And yes, Wiener, Lady Peeps, I knew you'd like that one. And I'm not too sure. Probably it was. I think it's closed as of now. I believe it is. If it's still open, that's wonderful. Because if I ever get a chance to make it down there, I'm definitely going in there to eat. So, those were the top restaurants of the day. And now, of course, I'm going to get into music. Okay. First, we'll start out with some obscure bands. One of them I happened to hear about while browsing on Amazon. It was this band called Ramatam. And yes, it had an odd name. I don't know where they got it from, but it was unique in where they have a female guitar player named April Lawton, and who is believed to be transgender. And I've actually looked at some of her pictures, and although she's a pretty woman, there's a lot off about her. But evidently the thing back then is that women couldn't play guitar like Jimi Hendrix or so, and she played a mean guitar. It rivaled Jimi Hendrix, and it was amazing. I saw pictures of her where she was playing with the cello bow, leaning back and playing with the cello on the floor like Jimmy Page did, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, this woman, that was the first female guitar player that anyone that have maybe heard of the band. Actually, a member of the band was Mike Panera, who had sung in Blues Image, and you'll know their hit Ride Captain Ride, which was from their album Open, which is a great album that I forgot to cover in my 1970 show. But you can check out Blues Image Open. That's a great album. And Ramatam released one album, the self-titled album, and in 1973 called "And the Dawn came the dawning of the Red Suns," and then they disbanded. But another member of the band was Jimi Hendrix's drummer, Mitch Mitchell. So it was sort of kind of not really a super group, but. And one thing you noticed about super groups, you notice they never last. They only last for maybe one album, maybe two, and they almost never are. They just, for some reason, there's a curse with super groups. It goes nowhere. But April Lawton, the guitarist, she went on to become an artist, and I believe it was in the mid-2000s she passed away, and I believe it was cancer. It was really sad. She seemed like a very sweet person from what everybody knew. And she was, I believe she was transgender. And it really doesn't matter. If you can play guitar, you can play guitar no matter who you are. And it was a pretty good group for a while, only 2 albums. But another obscure group that no one probably knows about, and this was Robert Palmer, very first group, and it was called Vinegar Joe. Lady Peeps, I'm not sure if you've heard of Vinegar Joe. Robert Palmer was a singer, and there's also a singer named Elkie Brooks, who was almost like Janis Joplin. Her vocals can kind of grate on your nerves a little bit, but one of my favorite songs from the very first album was called "See the World Through My Eyes," I happened to find that song on Pandora when I was listening to it at work. And it kind of has a Yes-like sound to it. Very nice, like the organ in the beginning, very nice vocal interplay. And another album they released at the end of 1972 is Rock and Roll Gypsies. And a song that I like from them is called Charlie's Horse. It's kind of a mixture between the Allman Brothers meets Yes, and that's a phenomenal track. And Elkie Brooks does her best to sound like a whinnying horse, which is phenomenal in itself, but it's also sort of annoying, but it's a great track nonetheless. So those were two albums they did in 1972. And yes, I love the Allmans, Lady Peeps. One of my favorite albums. Oh, there's so many favorites. There's Eat a Peach, which actually was released in 1972, half live, half studio. The best was the Mountain Jam. That was just, I was just in awe of that. Oh, Mountain Jam, and I'm sorry, Les Brer in A minor. A great, written by Dickie Betts. Awesome, awesome. I think I like that better than the Mountain Jam. Then, of course, the studio tracks are wonderful. Blue Sky, Stand Back, One Way Out, or I think that was a live track. I'm not sure, but, and Blue Sky is great. And good, relaxing tune. But yes, I love the Allmans, and that's one of their best albums, Eat a Peach, which went to number 3 on the charts in 1972. Another obscure band also named Silver, and they were also a British band. And I happened to be driving in my mom's car because my car wasn't running. I drove over hers, and she had Sirius and Deep Tracks. I listened to a channel called Deep Tracks, and that came on. It was called Couldn't Possibly Be by Silver. And I'm like, God, this is a great tune with clavinet keyboards and a phenomenal tune. And I have their CD somewhere, and I haven't listened to it a while, but their music is really good, called Silver. Yes, that was another. And yes, Lady Peeps, I've been finding a lot of obscure bands on YouTube. And my thing is I've got to stop because I'm going crazy downloading all this stuff from YouTube and putting CDs together. I don't know which one to watch first or listen to. I'm sorry. And Lee, I have all these music CDs, and I keep going back to your shows. Number 1, because I love your voice. Number 2, because you're hilarious. And number 3, you are like the king of scam baiters. You're right there with Joe Scambait. And of course, there's Nikki. And I listen to little pieces too. I got to listen to more of hers too. But Lee, you just, I don't know what it was. You did the dun, dun, dun. And your voice was like radio. I'm like, oh my God, this guy. And I just imagine, oh my God, he's got to be handsome. And boy, I wasn't wrong. Right, Lady Peeps? Oh, shit. I think I don't want my hubby to hear that. I hope he didn't hear it. He really can't hear me much anyway from far away, so my door's shut, so I don't worry too much. Anyway, and good songs for the day. One of my favorites was, everybody's favorite was Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. And actually, and another album. Let's go to more popular music. Yes, another Yes album, Close to the Edge. Lady Peeps, I'm Not. Yeah, Lee, I figured. Anyway, yes, Close to the Edge. Lady Peeps, not sure if you heard that album. That's another number 3 album of 1972 with its epic track. Just, oh my God, it's mind-blowing. The whole Close to the Edge, and side 2 was good too. Siberian Can't True, or whatever that song is. It's kind of funky, kind of got a little funky rhythm going on there. But yes is phenomenal. A lot of I think their stuff, their late 70s stuff, actually in 1980 when John Anderson left, and I can't remember who took over the vocals, but Jeff Downes and Trevor Horn from the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. Great tune in 1979. I will be covering that. And actually, their album Drama was pretty good. Tempest Fugit, phenomenal tune, one of my favorites. But anything, I think, I didn't really listen too much to Tales of Topographic Oceans, but I didn't really care for it too much. But I do love the early Yes. And Blue Oyster Cult's first album, debut album, came out in January of 1972. And I think that was their best album, to be honest. Very heavy, ominous, and they sang about Canadian Mounties. They sang about a drug deal gone bad. That song was called Then Came the Last Days of May. And my very favorite song that played a lot on WSHE in Florida was called Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. That was my favorite song by them. And another great band that I mentioned, prog metal band, Lady Peeps. You may have heard of them. Uriah Heep. I mentioned their one album, Look at Yourself, on the 1971 show last week. And they had their very first top 40 hit here in the States called Easy Living. Easy living, and I've been forgiven. That was a good song. That was their Demons and Wizards album. And at the end of 1972, they released The Magician's Birthday, which I was heavily into. I dated a rock and roller back in 1996 when I was 28, and I was a bone thin. And it's funny, I always thought that rocker guys preferred the big boobs, the blonde hair, typical. But I tell you what, those rock and rollers loved me. Granted, I was this big around, but I was like up here, everywhere, thin arms, everything. And man, they loved me. They loved me. Pardon the boob comment again here. I know it's a little bit much, but I'm sorry. I just had to mention that. Yes, Uriah Heep. Oh, yeah. And on the other note, another funk tune that I know Lee has listened to was Troglodyte by the Jimmy Castor Bunch. He's singing about how everything was back in the caveman days, and caveman listened to his stereo, and he gets up and he does this. Dance, dance. And then when he got tired of dancing alone, he'd look in the mirror and he'd go, gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman. Lee, you should do that in your next show. Whenever you talk about wanting to get a woman, you should bust out on that. So anyway, another song, I'm not too sure if you knew. I don't really remember it back then, but it was ahead of its time. It was by a band called Hot Butter, and it was called Popcorn. And it had these like little like drums, like this tss, 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 and these woo, woo, keyboards ahead of its time, and it sounded like popcorn. Popping. It goes boop, 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 and little sparse little drums, and it's just a quirky little tune. That was another one that's just way like away from its ahead of its time. And I'm going to cover some of really the fads or things that I knew in my childhood. One of them, you got popcorn, yay! And anyway, canopy beds were all the rage among us little girls. We loved our canopy beds. Mine, what happened is for some reason, I was a pretty, experimenting 4-year-old. I was hanging from the bars, the little bars that held up the canopy. I decided to be a monkey and swing on it, and it went. And my mom comes in and goes, "You broke it!" And then I remember laying there. My mom's like, "Well, I don't know what we're gonna do." So she ended up taking it down. And I just had like a 4-poster. Another thing that was good about the canopy bed, I remember my cousin Ronnie, who was a year younger than me. We took the mattress off the bed and we laid it to the side. And what we did is we jumped and we slid down. It's amazing. We didn't break our necks. We did that for it seemed like hours we would do that. And it was so much fun. Oh my God, the fun we had. And another thing too, back then, all the toys were not kid friendly. I had for Christmas, I had this aluminum kitchen set, like rusted. And I was trying to put water in the sink. And of course it rusted out. It was like, ding, 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 aluminum. And of course, I loved my kitchen sets, and aluminum was back then. And back in the playgrounds, all metal, all brass, or all aluminum. No, nowadays they have, of course, the AstroTurf and the plastic. Man, it was amazing. Like I said, we didn't break our necks, bones. I mean, I'm sure some people have, preferably boys, because they're a lot more energetic, and they go, 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 the testosterone and whatever. So building up. So anyway, that was that too. And what else? Oh, cootie bugs. We had little cootie bugs. I remember you put the legs together. And I had what was an inchworm. I got it for Christmas in 1971. And it had a seat, a yellow seat, and it was like a worm. And it had the like accordion things. And you kind of, I know, lady peeps, I know that sounds a little inappropriate, but that's the best I could explain it. Another thing I had, and I think this contributes to the reason why I'm such an airhead and so out there. I had this electric motorcycle, and it was battery, electric battery or battery operated. And I swear for hours I'd be out on my porch. I go, how I didn't get dizzy is weird, because if I did that for two minutes, or 2 times, I'd be like, huh, that's enough, no more. Oh yeah, I'll motorbike. And I know there's an album, that group Slade, lady peeps. Their album, I think in England that was popular, was called Slade, SLAYED, and they're all doing this. And of course that crappy ass band Quiet Riot, when they did Come On Feel the Noise. I love that song, and I never knew it was by Slade. They couldn't do their own songs. They copied off, and Kevin DuBrow was a loudmouth freaking, looked like his head was all smashed in like a potato, talking shit about everybody, and that his mouth killed their career, which really they had none. And of course there's Mama We're All Crazy Now, which I think I like that one better than Come On Feel the Noise. And what other songs did Slade have? I'm not too familiar, like I said, with them. I listen to some of their stuff, and they're pretty decent. Glitter and glam, and glam rock, I think, really began in like 1972 with David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust, and of course there was later on. Of course, there was Lou Reed kind of went that way. I'm not a big fan of Lou Reed, but had the glitter and glam, and then Kiss came around in 1973, which I'll be covering. And as the 70s were built, the rock and roll was all broken down. There was progressive rock, heavy metal rock, pop rock, funk rock, you name it. It was a transitional time. That's why I like the 70s. I think my favorite years, I like all of the 70s, but I think my favorite years have to be 70, 71, 75, 76, and 79. But I'm going to be covering all of that in the future. Yeah, glam rock, love Bowie, and Kiss too. Oh yeah, the early Kiss before they became really, they were okay, but their 80s stuff like that album Asylum, no. Anything from Asylum going forward was just bad. And anyway, and of course, the Rolling Stones album, Exile on Main Street. That's a phenomenal album. I love Exile of Main Street. Exile of Main Street. They said a lot of throwaway tracks, but even the throwaways were good too. And what else happened when I was a kid there? Like the cootie bugs and the inchworm, and the mattress thing, and anything else I'd like to discuss from 1972. I'm really not too sure. I think that about covers it. There's a lot to cover. Watergate was kind of hard to cover because there's so many topics, and I'm always trying to get everything right, and I do better when I just talk rather than get anything down. And yeah, the Stones, and then they just kind of grind it out a little. But you know what? A Stones concert is a Stones concert. And once, you got to go. I've never went and seen them once yet. I almost did. And my friend wanted me to go along. And then for some reason, long story, my boyfriend wanted to go. He didn't really like my friend, who really wasn't too much of a friend anyway. Then all of a sudden, she doesn't mention with me because she didn't want him going along. But we were getting along together really weird, him and I anyway. But he had to come along, because he thought that a lot happened. Let's just put it that way. And I guess he didn't want me flirting with any guys if I was doing, or guys looking at me or whatever. But anyway, that was about it. So anyway, that covers my show for now. If I think of anything else, I'll go ahead and video it and put it up. If I think of anything more, any other interesting tidbits. In the meantime, thank you guys for coming out, and please let everyone know about my channel, to give it a gander on some of my videos. And if they like my videos, encourage them to subscribe. You know, I always put up these funny videos with my hubby, but I'm thinking of covering more topics as they come along. And there's more topics I was thinking of doing, and I never got around to doing it. But I'm gonna, when they come up, I'm probably just gonna do some at the spur of the moment. So, and I will let you know when I'm gonna do them. So in time, gotta go. I gotta get my walk in. I gotta get all my aerobics, my cardio in, so I can keep in shape during this lockdown. Because not going to yoga, hot yoga really sucks. Not hot yoga, but warm yoga. But anyway, thank you two for coming, and I will see you next week. And Lee, remember what I suggested for your show? I think that'll be hilarious. Anyway, bye.